Once upon a time, there was a frozen, wind-blown kingdom. Its ruler was called Boreas. He governed from a palace built with ice from a magic lake. King Boreas turned his realm into a winter playground for all to enjoy. But another king had his own idea of fun. Vulcanus, the god of fire, vowed to dethrone Boreas and bring back the warmth of the sun. Vulcanus and his crew finally won over Boreas, smashing his palace to bits. But every year, King Boreas comes back, bringing with him his winter paradise. Tonight, a paradise lost is found in St. Paul.
Welcome to A Frozen Fable, the lighting of the palace.
This is where the plot of our magical story takes us tonight, Harriet Island. This is home for the 1992 Winter Carnival Ice Palace, the center of power for King Boreas and the forces of winter. Thousands of people are here to watch the palace come alive during this grand opening gala. Good evening, everyone. I'm Paul Majors.
And I'm Diana Pierce. Welcome to the Kare 11 Ice Desk. It's slightly melting a little bit on us.
Defrosting slightly.
That's right. And it's our presentation of A Frozen Fable, the lighting of the palace. Like any book, ours has a table of contents, a sample of things to come. We'll take you to the unearthly world to see the origins of the palace. You'll also witness the mammoth effort to bring the dream of the world's largest ice palace to reality. And the Wizards of Wattage work their magic to turn raw kilowatts into a super spectacle for all the world to see. The dream builders are the men and women who've constructed palaces for the last 106 years.
You know, having a winter carnival with an ice palace as its focal point, it actually started with a wisecrack from a New York reporter. In 1885, apparently the correspondent wrote and his readers read that St. Paul in the wintertime was actually uninhabitable for human beings.
That's right, and that's not the impression St. Paul's railroad and steamship tycoons wanted spread across the country. So, those business leaders created the carnival and the legend. They looked to Montreal for ideas. That city had a carnival and an ice palace. But it was a natural disaster that brought those traditions here.
The Montreal Winter Carnival had been in existence since 1883, and a smallpox epidemic at that time wiped out their carnival for 1886. So we just imported the plans, the architects, the winter activities, all of the different events, and just transported them right to St. Paul and just produced the whole thing right here. And it's been here ever since.
More than 40 palaces would be built through the years. The 1887 palace reached 14 stories, the tallest building in town back then. A year later, local fish dealers served oysters on the half-shell inside that palace. In 1937, singer Rudy Valley crooned inside the palace through sub-zero temperatures. But just the opposite happened some years. The palaces of 1889 and 1890 never made it past these sketches. It was just too warm for the ice. The 1942 Carnival Pep Squad posed in front of a half-finished palace that began melting away during construction. The Vulcans tore it down before it was finished. And the 1986 palace was also a meltdown victim.
This is ice that was deteriorated about 2-3 weeks ago during a real hot spell.
Crews used tarps to shield the ice from the hot sun, packed the palace with dry ice, and sprayed it with CO2 in an effort to keep the walls of the palace from crumbling. Plans were scaled back to make up for the lost time. And the palaces have had their share of quirks. That 1986 version had a fish frozen inside one of the ice blocks. It was deja vu from 100 years earlier.
I think my favorite story is in 1886, teams of New York scientists came to the ice palaces to, there were several frozen fish inside the ice blocks, and they unthawed them very carefully to see if they'd come back to life.
So you might say that the ice palace served as the first test of cryogenics.
And that fish that you saw from 1986 is back. Someone saved that fish from destruction, kept it in a freezer, and put it back into this year's fortress. There's also a walleye chasing a can of Pepsi. It's frozen in a block just to the left of the grand entrance to the palace if you happen to come over and want to see it.
Now, in fables and fairy tales, palaces just appear. In the real world, though, it takes a lot of planning and hard work.
For the 1992 Ice Palace, it all starts in the clearest lake in the entire state of Minnesota. It's called Green Lake, located near Spicer, Minnesota. But what looks like just any lake on its surface is a mystical place below the waterline. Here's Kare 11's John Stone.
There used to be a sign out on the outskirts down here. The world's clearest lake.
It's named Green Lake, but its water is clear. Crystal clear and cold.
The particulate content is so low, it's like looking through a piece of glass.
Green Lake ice. In a land of frozen lakes, this won out as the best for an ice palace. So clear the sun sprays through, so cold it stays intact until the harvesters enter the picture.
They cut it with the big circle saws out there. They score it like glass. And then they float it into the channel and break off each individual piece like this then. Too small.
A few won't size up, but 20,000 will. So many that the longest harvest in Spicer this year has been ice. The first 88 blocks of it are loaded carefully and shipped slowly to St. Paul. December 12th, one from that load, the Winter Palace cornerstone, is laid.
There we go!
But the task ahead is awesome.
Everybody says, oh, it'll never get done in time, or, you know, it won't be as high as they say, but we always get it done.
The Ice Palace is drawn up to be the largest ice structure ever, summed up by workers as
the mother of all ice palaces.
But construction manager Tom Keller makes it sound simple.
They have them on pallets. They unload them into the dunk tank to wash the salt and the road dirt from them. That lets them float into the conveyor. The conveyor spanks them from behind, sends them up the ramp through the milling machine. Our shavers consistently make them 17 1/4 or greater. They go down into place. The riggers hook the ice block. They get hoisted up to the point where they get dropped.
Whoa, whoa, whoa!
And the bricklayers slide them into the right position. Then you move on to the next ice block.
It's a massive project with detailed craftsmanship. Angles are cut, blocks are measured. And to make it all stick together, grooves are etched in some blocks. Others are melted just a bit so they'll bond together when they refreeze.
It's like stacking Lego blocks and gluing them together with Mother Nature.
Lego blocks on a grand scale. Each new level brings out higher scaffolding and higher intensity.
Keep this table going straight!
Those gaps to be filled seem smaller from up high.
There we go, down, down, we're in.
As the palace grows, the last thing on the workers' minds is whether it will crumble.
When the ice blocks come together, they're individual pieces. With a little bit of meltdown and then refreezing, it makes the ice castle actually stronger, a monolithic type structure.
To that end,
the weather's helping, it's perfect.
but as quickly as the palace changes, so does the weather, and each extreme causes problems. Bitter cold.
I'm ready to go back to Arizona.
Wind and rain.
Well, it makes things slippery for climbing and for laying block.
And the most threatening of all, prolonged warmth.
It's January 11th, 45 degrees at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's raining.
Melting, actually.
That's of concern to me. It creates some cavities in the ice, shrinks the ice a little bit.
The pleasure of going gloveless, overshadowed by concern for the palace.
If this kept up for about 3 or 4 days, our project would be in jeopardy.
The workers kept up their pace, the only constant at this site. When one shift ended, a second began, carrying construction through 20 hours a day with the same quality commitment. the crew before. This group was not about to miss the deadline.
You got her, take her up.
And neither was this. Together, building 12 towers, from one side to the other, the length of a football field. By comparison, some of the finishing touches, like water for the ice rink, seemed simple. But the center tower was a job, a big one. Assembled earlier and composed of 5 sections, the bottom part alone weighed 22 tons.
If it picks this one up, it will pick any of them up, don't you think?
Lifted in a sky as clear as the ice.
Coming down easy. 2 feet, hold that.
It was finally set down in nightfall. The 2 top pieces, the crowning touches, were also the riskiest. Workers waited for daylight the next day to place them. Crowds below waited to see them placed.
We can hold it from the outside.
Yeah.
We're under on this side. To the right. Yeah, he'll make it.
He did. 6 weeks of work was 1 section away.
Looks nice. It'll look even better when we get the last piece up there.
The last piece, tethered along by a few workers, the 15th and final story.
So getting closer, look at you.
A victory wave from a worker.
I'm proud of what I did out here. It looks good.
Applause from the onlookers. And the highest honor of all for the people who conceived a dream and put it on Harriet Island.
There we are, Old Glory, 166 feet above St. Paul.
John Stone at the Palace.
Unfortunately, what goes up must come down.
A demolition expert is in town this week, and he's been checking out the palace to try and figure out how much dynamite it would take to blow it up and bring it down.
There's also a chance that a film company may buy the rights to destroy the palace and film the event, maybe in Terminator 3 or 4 or 5. Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, this is a real tribute, in fact, to the men and women who worked on the Ice Palace, because not one worker was injured during the whole construction process.
Kare 11's Kathy Vara says every man and woman who built the palace put their skill and heart into their work.
Mike Dawfeld makes this climb every day. It's a long way up, but what a view.
You can see the entirety of the ice castle. It's certainly a spectacular sight and basically an honor.
Mike's great-grandfather cut ice for a living, so he says it's a little bit like seeing into his family's past.
For approximately $1 a day, he cut ice up at Green Lake. And it's kind of unique that years later, now I'm having something to do with it, and it's for the castle.
It's the first time he's ever worked with ice.
It's so pretty, the different textures and fibers and shades of ice and shading and colors are unique. I like it.
Carpenter Linda Davis is learning to work with the new material too.
I'm used to working with wood rather than ice, so it's a lot different.
And she feels like she's making her own mark on the palace.
I think it's really a privilege to be out here and to be able to be part of this historical event, being that I'm making history in my own right by being the only black woman that has worked on the ice castle.
Linda says there's a special bond between the workers here. They know it's an opportunity to see one side of the palace most people will never see, the inside. Step inside and you find narrow hallways and scaffolding, just enough room for the workers to do their job. And their job isn't easy. Electricians like Greg Ewald hook up hundreds of strobe lights. And Greg feels like he's carrying on family tradition just working on the palace. Greg says his father never missed a winter carnival, and he has the button collection to prove it.
You know, I inherited his collection and I'm trying to keep it going. I have all the winter carnival buttons dating back to 1900, so we got to go back up there and move them.
Greg's work requires some pretty fancy footwork, maneuvering his way around with skill that would make the most daring circus performer envious.
All right, we're good there. Over.
Okay.
Climb around on these scaffolds, you're almost part of the ice castle. You know, put a lot of your work into it. It's fun. I enjoy it. I'd be here for nothing if there was no pay.
And for Greg, perhaps the greatest reward is knowing his dad would be proud he is carrying on the winter carnival tradition. Kathy Vara at the Palace.
Minnesota. Super Bowl 26. Fire and ice.
The Super Bowl task force borrowed a Winter Carnival theme to sell the NFL owners on Minnesota, and they promised them fun in St. Paul.
And in 1992, we're going to do it up especially right. We'll build for you the biggest ice castle that any of you have ever seen.
It's easy to make a promise. It's a lot harder to keep it. While volunteer labor built the last ice castle, this year's Super Bowl timetables required changes.
We knew that the window to showcase this was going to be more limited with the Super Bowl happening on the first Sunday night. So we, I think, decided early on that we were going to have to obtain sponsorship for this and pay for more of the things than we did in 1986.
Like paying most of the people who make it happen.
I'm building a palace.
Big money sponsors mean big money access. These hospitality tents will give sponsors a place to wine and dine corporate honchos right in front of the icy edifice. It's a system Minnesotans have seen before.
St. Paul Winter Carnival.
Tying this year's event to the Super Bowl has brought super pressure to create a super carnival. Just ask the staff.
And he needs to fax over our certificate of insurance.
I thought we were doing like 3 or 4 big pieces.
He can't do 3-inch size.
Well, I think we should go down to a 2.5.
We'll need a permit from him for heat for the generator.
We're really doing 3 festivals in terms of the level of sponsorship, the level of expenditure, and the level of effort.
Despite the added hype, most of the carnival will be the same. Klondike Kate will still be there, as will the ice slide. These scenes will be shown to an international audience of nearly 1 billion people. And for at least one weekend, visitors will see a difference.
There'll be a lot of corporate tour groups in town, a lot of international visitors. So I think they will sense that difference. These aren't going to be just Minnesota folks this year. There's going to be a lot of people here.
It was anything but easy to sneak a peek at the Ice Palace in the making. Most days, onlookers were kept off the site for their own good.
Well, it's blocked up wherever you want to go through.
And palace security, in attempts to keep traffic moving, shooed fans off the nearest street viewing spot. But that didn't stop creative souls from tossing caution to the chilly wind and trying.
You get some people saying they're from Spicer, Minnesota. They want to see where their lake ice is going up at.
Oh, those onlookers, they were a crafty lot. We saw different techniques of avoiding security and snapping away at history. There was the I'm from Iowa approach.
The cops were a little feisty, yeah, but yeah, it was worth my life.
Others said, oh, but I've brought out-of-town guests from Oregon and we've got to get close.
It's magnificent. It's huge. It's blue, though.
What color did you expect it to be?
White.
But the best excuse by far to get close to this chunk of ice was this one.
One guy today says he's worth the Burt Reynolds crew, which ain't true.
So where the heck were the best places to view this ice palace? Well, we investigated and found 2 of our own.
I think I'll have the salmon.
And ever in the pursuit of truth and journalism, I sacrificed my bag lunch and joined the North St. Paul Retired Teachers Monthly Luncheon. Hotel management plunked a telescope in Le Carousel restaurant on the 22nd floor. And voila, a safe and warm place to view the Ice Palace.
And if it works out, I'll send it to the instructor that I had that showed me how to use my camera.
And the other best view? Well, I wasn't about to check it out in person for you. Yes, the Ramsey County Jail and Sheriff's Office has another great view.
Every day we come to work and see progress being made on it, and it's just been real enjoyable to watch it go up.
And you don't have to fight with security to see it either.
No, we don't.
White, red, yellow, cycling.
This type of lighting has never been done in ice. It's always been in rock concerts on those big fancy scaffolds. And all they do is just lower the scaffold, hook them on, and run them up and walk away. But we have to figure out everything on how to do it.
Coming up.
This is 112 feet up in the air. It feels secure to me. It's not moving in the wind.
Whoa!
Where'd that come from? Oh, that's dropping down from between
Almost a direct hit.
Excluding the control cables, we got about 3.5 miles.
Here's the mirror, but check this out. It's got a rotating motor in the back here. Oh, for great. And that sucker can go this way, that way, whatever.
Now the data flashes are coming on. They go through a self-test.
Whoa! Now we're having fun. Let me out of here!
The magic of electricity, isn't it wonderful?
Get in.
Oh, that's third level. Would you believe that's only 10% of its power?
Go outside and look at the cone works to see what it looks like.
Okay, give me a few minutes.
That's one fixture right now, and there's 402 in the whole castle now. These are very bright, and there are going to be a total of 76 of these.
You will not believe how bright it's going to be. They're going to have to tell St. Paul Airport that this is not the landing field. You might have Paul Majors tell the people it wouldn't be a bad idea to have your sunglasses in your shirt pocket
even at night.
At night. It's going to be fun.
Big moment has arrived. The palace is about to be brought to life with lights.
That's right. Let's just go to the main stage right now to watch what's happening. The switch is about to be thrown.
Are we ready to light an ice palace? Governor? We're going to need some help on the countdown. Are you all ready to help me? Okay, let's start out. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.